Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 12 of The Loud House, Chore Peace. We begin this segment with Lincoln explaining to the audience how all the Loud siblings, besides Lily, given that she's just a baby, has a chore to do, and Lincoln has the chore of taking out the trash. At first, he says that everyone does their fair share, but as he's doing his chore, he notices that his chore actually does appear to be harder compared to the others. Three of the sisters, actually, Luann, Lynn, and Lucy, all work together with cleaning the dishes. Lenny's is just taking hair out of the drain, which really only took a few seconds for her. Luna is just vacuuming, and Lana picks up the, shall we say, droppings of the family pets, though given Lana's personality, that's really more of a hobby for her than an actual chore. Lori does the laundry, but it's really more the machines doing the work for her. And Lisa actually does the bills. And noticing this, Lincoln actually asks that one of his sisters trade chores with him, since they at first try to deny his request by saying how when Lincoln says he has the hardest chore, they deny this, claiming theirs are just as hard, if not harder. And when Lincoln suggests maybe they'd trade with him if theirs were so hard, they refuse again, Lori claiming that it would upset the balance of the house. And because of this, Lincoln eventually decides to go on strike, refusing to do his chore until one of the sisters switches chores with him. As this is going on, the sisters do notice how difficult things can get when Lincoln isn't taking out the trash. The parents actually notice this too, and Mr. Loud actually thinks they should intervene, but Mrs. Loud says not to, and they do a jigsaw puzzle instead because Mrs. Loud thinks that the kids should learn to solve their own problems. Eventually, Lincoln overhears the sisters talking about how they can't stand this, and he takes this as a sign that they'll finally, at least one of them will finally trade with him. But then, when he wakes up the next day, it turns out that all the Loud sisters, again, besides Lily, who's just a baby, decide to all go on strike and won't end their strike until Lincoln ends his strike. And so it pretty much turns into a battle of endurance who can go on strike the longest among them. And once again, the Loud parents don't interfere because they think the kids should solve their own problems. Although a lot of strange stuff definitely goes on with, well, not only is it very messy and filthy when no one does their chores, but a strange occurrence happened. Sentient trash, or sapient trash. Apparently there's a living trash creature, and Lisa refers to him as Trashy, in fact. And while things continue to get messier and more convoluted, because they try to do other things to make do with, like Lori actually tries to use Walt the bird as a messenger bird for Bobby since she can't text, because since Lisa's no longer doing the bills, the power's out and they have no cell service, but it ends up being intercepted by Clyde, so yeah, it's getting very difficult for everyone. And again, the parents don't interfere, but they do notice Lily crawling around, and they do take her with them into their room to continue this jigsaw puzzle. But when all of this reaches a threshold, though, and they hear crying in Lily's crib, it's not really Lily, but a raccoon. They don't know that the Loud parents took Lily with them into their room, so they're worried that Lily is lost somewhere in the filthy house. So Lincoln and the sisters agree to end their strike, and they proceed to clean up the house. And when they do this, though, they still don't see Lily anywhere, and they're worried that she's lost forever, only to see that the Loud parents do have Lily with them, and and they end up deciding to just go back to doing their regular chores. But when Lincoln brings the trash out to the driveway, or at the end of the driveway, or the curb, whatever you want to call it, the Loud family's neighbor, an elderly man, his name isn't revealed in this segment, and the credits just call him Neighbor, but we'll cover that more a little later. But he's voiced by John DiMaggio in any case, and he tells Lincoln not to bother because the garbage people are going on strike until they get paid better. Hearing that people actually get paid to take out the trash, Lincoln and the sisters go back on strike, this time until they get paid to do their chores, and that's where the segment ends. Now, with this segment, I felt it kind of had a flaw similar to its sibling segment, Along Came a Sister. And I feel that flaw was, this was another example where Lincoln makes a valid point, but the segment tries to portray him as being in the wrong. In this case, I do think Lincoln's point about how he actually does have the most difficult of the chores, or that his chore is harder than the others, is actually quite valid, because as we saw, multiple sisters get to work together with one chore. Some of them, like Lori's and Lenny's, were really not that difficult. Lori's case, because it's the machines doing the work, and in Lana's case, she enjoys it. It's more of a hobby for her than an actual chore, and I imagine Lisa probably doesn't mind doing the bills, considering that all the math involved. But the segment tries to portray Lincoln as being in the wrong for wanting to at least trade a chore, or I think at the very least, at least one of the other sisters could have lent Lincoln a hand, but the only justification we get for why that can't be is it would upset the balance of the house, and it felt like, rather than being a valid response to it, it just felt like the whole universe conspired just to make Lincoln look to be in the wrong, so I wasn't too keen on that. I felt, again, it was another case of a valid point being made, but it getting blown off or brushed aside, and I didn't agree with that. Now, on the good side, though, we did get to hear a little bit more about the Loud family. At one point, near the beginning, they do bring up their grandfather, who they affectionately refer to as Pop Pop. We don't actually get to see him here, but we do get to meet him eventually. This is the first time they mention him, but he'll be coming along in the future, so keep him in mind in the back of your head. And as I said before, the elderly neighbor shows up, and his name's not revealed here, and even the credits didn't call him by his name. They just called him Neighbor. Some people wondered if that meant they actually didn't have plans for him to be important later, because it won't be till the end of season 1 when he actually has his name revealed, and he starts to become more of a recurring role after that. So that might have been an example of how plans changed during the show's production. Who knows for sure, but keep him in the back of your mind too. He'll be coming back in the future at some point. And I'll bring up his name there when it's mentioned in the credits. That's right. The credits are what mention his name first, and then it's not until later when it's actually said in the show. So when the first segment that mentions his name in the credits, we cover that, I'll mention his name then. Oh, this segment was also, it seemed like it was meant to address a question that a lot of people had around the beginning of the show, was why don't the parents step in? Because they could easily have solved some of the problems that we might have seen in earlier segments, and this is more or less the explanation we get, is they want the kids to solve their own problems or figure out for themselves. And I mean, that's an understandable motive. I mean, when it comes to parenting, or even in other positions too, like if you're in a position of authority, there can be a fine line like whether you're a teacher or a guardian, or it can be a very hard line where there are certain situations where, yeah, you can't solve everyone's problems for them or else they'll never learn how to do it themselves. But at the same time, you gotta know at what point when is it appropriate to step in and intervene. And in this case, yeah, there might have been a point where the parents should have probably got involved, but it seemed like it was played more for laughs. So, but yeah, and I'm sure any parent watching would know, like, yeah, if the house got as messy as it did there, that's probably when you should get involved. Otherwise, Trashy was very surprising since Loud House is mostly realistic, or it's fairly grounded in real life for the most part, but Trashy definitely seems out there, and some people didn't like that, but I personally didn't mind that myself. Like, I was okay with Trashy. Like, I thought he was pretty funny, and it was pretty touching how he actually tried to help find Lily too. And oh, that's it too. I will say it was nice how the rest of the siblings all put aside their differences to help Lily when they thought she was in danger. So that's another good example to show while they can get on each other's nerves sometimes, and sometimes they can be at each other's throats, it is nice to see that they are able to put their differences aside when one of them is in danger, or they believe one of them is in danger. So I give them props for that. So while I felt both segments for episode 12 had some good parts, but also had some weak parts, one of which was something they shared in common, I might give the edge a little more to the A segment than the B segment for when it comes to episode 12. And with that, we've now discussed episode 12 on this channel. Take care, and until next time.